People who jog in the street when a sidewalk is available. Why? In addition to the many reasons already listed here, visibility is much better in the street, both my ability to see cars at intersections and their ability to see me. Drivers don't anticipate someone coming into the crosswalks quickly, which is also why it's dangerous to bike on the sidewalk, but they're usually at least looking at the street. I always run opposite traffic, as you're supposed to, so there's never a car coming up from behind. Bottom line, I feel much safer running in the street. Cars in them sometimes vanish completely. Have pedestrians walking to abreast, people walking, badly trained dogs that attack runners, and their owners don't know how to control them. Loose dogs ditto. Both my wife and I have face-planted on one occasion each by an unmarked raised slab that was practically invisible in the available light. Lot of trees shifting sidewalk slabs here, and the very wet climate. In college, every time I walked on the sidewalk, I'd have to dodge and sidestep lizards racing out from the grass and across the pavement. It was like they were waiting for me to approach so they could run in front of me. Had to look at the ground as I walked so I didn't step on them. And even when I watched my step, I still ended up accidentally stepping on some because they were just so fast and apparently so suicidal. So eventually I just started walking on the road. In addition to the uneven squares and driveway slopes, I find that during the winter, sidewalks are unevenly maintained. Several houses may shovel the walk, then there'll be one or more that don't. Even residential roads tend to be plowed, salted, and have better surface texture than the sidewalk. If you're not wading through a few inches of unshoveled snow, then it's frozen footprints or clumps of ice stuck to the cement that are tripping hazards. Absolutely depends on where I'm jogging, but the road is more of a consistent terrain. When I'm training for an actual running event where you run on the road, rather than concrete dirt paths, it is good to train on the actual road. I personally am pretty aware of cars and will move off the road if necessary. I live in a pretty small town, so running on the road isn't too much of a hassle for other road users, because streets offer both cars and pedestrians regardless of whether there's a sidewalk or not. Your state code will verify this for most states that are civilized. And for the idiots that complain about cyclists that don't use the sidewalk, it's a hazard for them to use it 9-10 times. Source: I work on the finance side of transportation engineering. Well, one time I was jogging on sidewalks that were very uneven due to tree roots. Legally, people in my town are required to fix these issues. Realistically, many people don't have the dollar. Anyway, I tripped and broke my front teeth off, and that is why I will sometimes run in the street, albeit very unbusy residential side streets. Roadways have far less tripping hazards. Sidewalks are regularly uneven or poorly maintained. Then there's issues like other people, dogs, overgrown vegetation. Like any place with potholes is going to have even worse or non-existent sidewalks. I used to walk or jog at night through neighborhoods, little to no traffic or other people. I haven't done this, but some cities can't accommodate pedestrians and joggers on their sidewalks at the same time. Older cities, like Dublin, Ireland, have narrow sidewalks. Despite this, people still try to jog on them, even in groups. It makes walking through the city a little awkward when joggers are trying to use the sidewalks. Also found this from an actual doctor, stating that the hardness difference between concrete and asphalt is insignificant when running in shoes, because the cushioning afforded by shoes far exceeds any cushioning provided by those surfaces. And the best part about it is they'll then run against traffic too. Like there's a perfectly good pedestrian path, and then they choose to run in the street and add 6-10 miles per hour to the impact of the car that will run them over by running against traffic. I suppose they imagine they can dodge the car that ends up killing them. Kids and other inattentive people, dogs, cars blocking the path, hidden corners, sidewalks that abruptly end, etc. If it's a safe sidewalk with an unobstructed view, I'll use it. If it's a low traffic road, like in suburban neighborhoods, I'll use that. I choose to not run where I'm mixing with traffic. Another vote for uneven and trip hazard-filled footpaths. I run on the footpath in areas where they are well maintained, but in most areas it's just asking for a rolled ankle. That said, I will immediately move onto the footpath when a car is approaching, and I only run on roads with almost zero traffic. I hate when people do that. But honestly, I understand why when I see how tore up the sidewalk is. It's inconvenient as a driver when they're on the road, but it would be even more inconvenient for them to use the sidewalk with 10 different elevations, within 5 feet and trees growing out of them. I sprained my ankle bad jogging on an uneven surface last year. Sidewalks are usually really bad for this. The streets are usually more smooth and even. Also, a street paved with asphalt is much softer than a concrete sidewalk, so that is much better for reducing impact on your knees. If the road is asphalt and the sidewalk concrete, then the road is way better on the joints. Also, people fail to keep sidewalks clear. The road is also designed for all modes of travel except when listed, so walking in the road is generally legal, but you'd need to verify by locality. It's safer. See and start moving in random directions. When seeing a runner approach, it's also less terrifying for women when you're coming up behind them in the dark. Finally, asphalt is a lot softer than concrete. As someone who was in cross country in high school and spent many hours running, anyone who does this is a moron. If one is available, run on the dance sidewalk like a normal person. We literally never ran out in the roads if it could be avoided. That'd just be stupid. Smoother surface. Sidewalks tend to rise up from the street, and the driveways dip down to the street. So every few yards you have a terrain undulation that occurs and throws off your pace, as well as becomes a hazard for twisting your ankle if you're not prepared for it. Also, the street is guaranteed to be there and be a more or less constant flat surface, whereas if you have to keep jogging up and down the little bankments for people's driveways, it's kind of annoying. It's easier on your body. Sometimes concrete sidewalks is a lot harder and tend to give shin splints, whereas the asphalt, it's more even and apparently softer when running. This is what my old trainer told me as I struggled with shin splints when jogging. Cars blocking half the driveways. Sprinklers that soak me. People on bikes on the sidewalk that force me onto the grass. People that won't shorten their dog's leash which forces me onto the grass, etc. Here's the thing, I have this lady in my area that likes to run in the dark, in winter, in the pitch black with no reflective clothing or reflectors or headlamp. She is just itching to get hit. If you are going to run on the road, be visible. The surface is much more consistent, and I don't need to keep an eye on my feet to make sure I am not tripping over anything. Also, lots of trees overhang the footpath. On the road I don't need to dodge them nearly as often. If you're going to do this when it's dark out, please put something on that's reflective. I almost drove over a neighbor out running one night. He had on a black top bottom and beanie. I barely missed the guy. I'm not a jogger, but I know a common problem in Canada in certain months is snow. The road can often be much clearer and more suitable for jogging than the sidewalk, which can often either be unplowed or icy. People don't shovel the sidewalks in front of their house. The street gets cleaned immediately. People use sidewalks as their personal parking loading zones. I'm using the road as my personal sidewalk. Concrete sidewalks are harder and less forgiving on knees and ankles than asphalt. My city started out doing bike paths, running walking paths in concrete, but changed to asphalt at users' requests. In my neighborhood, every driveway entrance is a dip slope go into the street. It's a balance issue and for me, a hazard. When I'm in the street, it's a consistent surface that's easier to navigate. Streets are crowned, sidewalks aren't. I have one leg shorter than the other and a serious case of scoliosis. Being able to run with the pavement slightly sloped makes a huge difference. Dog owners who say he just wants to play. Side-by-side strollers. People backing out of their driveway only looking for cars. Kids on bikes. Cars blocking sidewalks. An even surface. If it's an evening on a quiet road, sometimes I jog or walk in the street because it's much better lit. And so I figure I'm less likely to get abducted, assaulted, mugged, etc. Repetition of stride. Don't have to very constantly so you get into rhythm. Can look farther away. and that lifts the head which straightens the neck which helps you breathe. They seem to have been replacing certain sidewalks in my area with asphalt bike paths to encourage more use out of them on top of all the scenic bike paths we already have. I used to on account of overgrown gardens, spider webs, spiders themselves, and the occasional excitable and extremely stealthy dog. Mind you, I used to do it at night. I've also always wondered why people jog down streets with 6 lanes of rush hour traffic when there are side roads with much less traffic and pollution to breathe in. You might not notice them exercising if they're not in your way. Or you can have the group of 20 bikes rocking the spandex costumes on 45 miles per hour roads. Super cool. Asphalt is softer than concrete. Over the hundreds of thousands of steps a runner will take. It adds up. Also, sidewalks tend to have more changes and obstacles. You know, I never considered my area to be the utopia of good sidewalks, but reading half these comments sure makes me appreciate their evenness and grade. Asphalt is softer than concrete. Also, the ups and down of the sidewalk for driveways and whatnot are a tripping hazard and bad for you as well. I asked myself similar question and I saw a dude riding his bike slowly in the middle of the freeway while the sidewalk was empty and spacious. I sprained my ankle twice in a year with like at least 3-5 months of recovery in between cause of uneven pavement, and everyone is on a Jodhpur street is just better, more open, no obstacles, no dodging fixtures, porches, etc. Way less dog problems. No intention of changing whatsoever. I deliver to neighborhoods. My question is, why do I see more people jogging in the rain, inclement weather than those in pleasant conditions?